Welcome to the Social Gravity Podcast. My name is Vic, the founder of Social Gravity. And today, of course, I am joined by my good friend, Cayden Gibb.
Woohoo!
What is going on, man?
I'm pumped, man. Let's just dive into this. I'm excited.
Okay. What are we diving into?
What we're diving into. Well, before we were kind of talking, because we met up on the weekend, we had some discussions about a book that I recommended to you, which is a very, very popular, one of the most popular self-help spiritual books of all time, entitled The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yes, which when I get a book recommendation from an astound intellectual like yourself,
Exactly.
I just dive into it.
Yeah.
So I'm halfway at this point, and I started 2 days ago.
So what were some of your initial takeaways and thoughts from that?
Well, just to give some perspective on why I really wanted to get into this is, just dealing with the COVID struggle, dealing with like the boredom. You kind of get into some bad habits that you want to break. I'm not going to be fully transparent over the bad habits, but I wanted to break this particular bad habit, and I came to some insights, and I shared them with you. And you're like, dude, that is on point with The Power of Now. When did you read it?
Okay, so backstory. So basically, The Power of Now is, again, one of the biggest self-help spiritual books basically of all time. When I picked up that book, I actually wasn't aware of how big it was. So what happened was I was at a local bookstore here and just browsing the self-help section, just cluelessly. And I just see this book and it says The Power of Now. I just pick it up. I just kind of read the back cover, whatever. And I was like, this kind of sounds cool. So I got it. I had no clue about anything, the backstory, all the hype around it. And I didn't actually read it. It just sat there for like a year. And then I had so many mentors and people I looked up to. And the very similar thing is they all were referencing this book, Power Now, Power Now. Oh, it changed my life, And I'm like, okay, I need to just read this because obviously it's highly recommended by some very smart people. And when I read it, I was one of those things where I was like, I've never heard someone explain this concept before. And the concept was of presence.
Right.
And obviously meditation is such a big thing in culture now. It was big in the East and now it's coming over to the West. But it kind of goes a more deeper. It's not just about sitting in your room quietly meditating, which is a part of that, but it's also learning how to be present in your day-to-day life, right? As you live.
What I'm getting from it right now, at the point that I'm in, is that thinking overall is a disease.
Yeah.
And when we start thinking about the past or the future, we start to disconnect from being our best in this moment and figuring out what would be the best course of action in this moment, because maybe we're afraid of what could happen.
Yeah.
We're also worried that what did happen could come again. And when we are in that state, we feel either stress or anxiety. But when we're in this state of right now, it's like clarity. It's just, it's empty.
Well, he really talks about two main concepts of things that we kind of self-inflict pain on ourselves. And the number one thing is ego. And then the second, is you kind of touched on, is this concept of the future and the past, right? And a lot of times we will create this version of ourselves, aka the ego, in our minds, and we place them either in the future or in the past. So in the future, you're putting this version of yourself in situations in the future that don't exist, haven't happened yet, but it's causing you distress in the present. So you're worrying about something that does not exist, hasn't happened yet, but it's causing you present distress. Same thing with the past. You put your ego, this version of yourself you've created in your mind, in the past. Because a lot of times when we look back on memories, they're tainted. It's not actually what went down, right? But again, that pain of regret is causing present pain. So it's this concept of get rid of these concepts of future and past in your life and live so ridiculously in the present that it just takes away the pain that you're causing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm getting a lot of pretty profound gems from it.
Yeah.
One of them was amazing because I actually brought it into when I meditated after listening to it. And he talked about this simple practice where he kind of invites you to try to think about what your next thought will be.
Yeah.
And when you think about what your next thought is going to be, you are waiting and hyper focused on the now, which is so profound. And I meditated and I just tried to stay in that constant state of what's my next thought? What is my next thought going to be? And it was like this crazy new level of energy that I was
Yeah.
on. It was amazing.
Well, again, he talks about this concept of consciousness, which it can get kind of, I think, a little trippy. People kind of take it and they make it, I call it the woo-woo. They make statements that aren't science-based, and it's like your life force energy is going to transport you to this dimension and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think from how he was describing it, it's not super woo-woo, like I'd say. And there's this concept of the duality, right? And you kind of touched on it, where when you're meditating, it's you aren't having thoughts, you're just being aware of them, right? Your brain will bring thoughts to you, and you're just the consciousness behind those thoughts. So it's like separating yourself from your thinking mind,
Yeah.
right?
But right when you decide to attach identity to your thought processes, that's where the ego
Yeah.
starts to form. And then you actually have two identities. You have this identity that you've created, and then you have this kind of life force that, or the I am that he says that you already are.
Yeah, your ego is kind of disappearing once you start have that duality. Once you separate your mind from what we call the consciousness. You can call it whatever you want. It's, I know that word could trip some people up, but it's like when you have, let's say you have a negative thought, right? A negative thought arises maybe about someone. You have a negative thought. And then your consciousness, your awareness is like, okay, I had a negative thought. And when you separate it, where it's like, I am not that thought, it's just something that came up, you don't dwell on it. It just happens and then it disappears.
Yeah.
Right?
And he almost talks about these negative thought patterns as if they're these entities in themselves that actually feed off of more negative energy, and they kind of self-propel and create this bigger and bigger entity or problem or whatever you want to call it. I know different spiritual sects will call it different things. Just really, really profound and kind of groundbreaking information that I definitely recommend it to anyone watching right now.
Yeah. So in the book, he calls them pain body attacks.
Pain
basically.
bodies. That's right. That's right.
So we, as humans, you can get addicted to emotional states, right? And you can feed off of other people's emotional states. And it's almost like, okay, so if someone has an addiction to a negative state of negativity, right? It's kind of like, let's say you're an alcoholic and all your friends want to go to the bar. They're kind of egging you on, right? Well, if you're around someone who is addicted to a state of negativity, they're going to try and pull that out of you as well, right? So the thing is, what he was saying in the book is recognizing when those feelings are arising in you and you're having a pain body attack from that, right? They're having their own pain body attack. They're having their own negative feelings popping up, and they're going to try to bring you in that state as well, right? So it's just being aware of that.
And I think right now too is such a crucial time where this is a really important topic to talk about with the state of things. COVID makes us live in the future of, I just want this to be done. And the past of, wow, it was so amazing before any of this happened, where we really, really, really don't want to be in the now. And it's almost like this manufacturing of control, but it's not like in the sense of be in lockdown or get the vaccine control. It's more like live outside of the now. And this is how the control is going to happen.
A really practical example, I would say, is that if this kind of sounds like a concept that's a little bit new to you, a really good way to think about it is that when you go to bed at night and you're alone or with your partner in bed, and let's say that the next day there's some stressful work situation. You might have a presentation, a project, but when you're in your bed about to go to sleep, there's nothing that you can do about that, right? So when you're in your bed, when you get fully present, you just get in this weird state of, because a lot of people, when they have that stressful thing the next day, it ruins their night in bed because they're just ruminating on the next day of what's going to happen. You're putting yourself in this future that you have no control over in this moment. So when you're in bed, just practice being fully present, letting go of those feelings of, oh my God, I have this tomorrow, I have this, and there's nothing you can do about it. No one's coming to hurt you, attack you. You're in full peace in your bed. Enjoy that presence.
Right. There's no problem happening in front of you in this moment. Like doing this podcast, sitting here, the problems that are in front of me right now are just conversation based. My mind could be, what am I going to do after? What client, what employee, contractor do I have to sync up with right after this? But then I'm not here. And my ability to be on this podcast in this conversation diminishes. And you can even feel it from people when they're living in the future, in the past. If I'm thinking about, oh, this morning, yada, yada, I didn't want to get up. I'm living back there. And it's just not very healthy.
Yeah, if you practice this concept, it will greatly help your relationships. And you
Mm,
even hear it from sports people. I definitely know in basketball, there's this concept of being in the zone.
right.
And there was a game where Kobe Bryant, he dropped 81 points in a single game, and that was like second most points ever scored in a single game, right? And we're asking him after, like, how are you feeling, right? And he just said that it was this weird like presence moment where nothing else even existed in time. He didn't see the crowd, didn't see anything. It was just he was so fully present in that moment, and he said he never really felt that before.
Wow.
So it's interesting.
What other books are you into right now? Because I have a list. I have a recurring Audible credit coming through, and I'm always using them. I'm always listening. I read physical. What are you into right now?
I'm reading a book right now called The Way of the Superior Man, which is
Mm,
very interesting. I like books that are very based off of my own situation currently. Like
yeah.
this book is very directed towards men.
Mhm.
Another very interesting book was called Free Will by Sam Harris. That's extremely trippy. If you ever want to read that, it's kind of the concept of do humans really have free will? All this type of things.
Mm.
It's very science based. So those are just a couple suggestions, but I'd have to look at my book list. What about you? What are you like going into right now?
So right now I finished a few. So I just finished Jay Shetty's book,
Okay.
which was pretty good.
Yeah.
A lot in there that, I love getting refreshers. Refreshers from books are awesome.
Yeah.
I don't really need a gem in every book. I feel like with every book you read, you're either going to get a gem or you're going to get a refresher. And Jay Shetty's was just full of refreshers, not so many gems. But then I heard that, so we were at our friends on the weekend, and I heard that a lot of Jay Shetty's material online is like stolen,
Yeah. Who
apparently.
knows?
Right.
Yeah.
So Jay Shetty's book, obviously, The Power Now, we were just talking about, and Cash Advertising, another one that I'm listening to. Um, Built to Last, really cool book about companies basically taking comparing the number one company in a historic industry versus the number two company and what makes that difference. Very cool. Do the Work, I finished a little bit ago. Very, very good book. Short, bite-sized, 2-hour book for anyone that wants to complete or get projects out, whether it's like a book, an album, a YouTube channel, a podcast. Like, this is what you need to listen to in order to get those steps in line. So much going on in
So
learning right now.
So how do you consume books for you? Because I know there's a lot of people that like to go Audible. There's still a bunch of people that like hardcover physical books. How do you consume your books? And also, are you someone who is like start to finish, I need to hear every word, read every letter, or are you kind of just finding those points and skimming through to a degree?
I feel that if I don't complete a book from start to finish, I'm kind of cheating myself.
Yeah.
I always feel like that with YouTube videos too, almost, where if I'm watching an educational YouTube video and there's like 3 minutes left, I'm like, man, just finish it. Just get it done. There might be a little gem or a refresher in that ending period. So I try to finish start to finish. Every single book I touch, I try to start to finish. Even if I feel like it's a waste of time, which might be a bad thing. But Audible has crept into my life more and more over the past year.
Yeah.
I have been in the past very physical copy. Like, I liked reading it. I feel like I retain probably like 10 times more information when I actually physically read it than when listening, because I think that my brain has learned to value information audibly less than if I read it, if that makes sense, just because of the trend of how we take in information.
Yeah, Audible is so big. I've tried it, and personally, I have to sit down and read a hardcover. I get too distracted with just the words, and I find that like 30 minutes will go by, and it's like, what happened? I missed it, and then I gotta go
Right.
back and all that. I have though recently been trying to experiment with not I don't want to use the word skim through books, but being intentional of like looking at the table of contents and seeing the key points and
Mhm.
then maybe going to different chapters. Because I have been recommended by some people to just try that method out. Because I do know some very smart people that they don't read books front to back. They try to get the core concepts and then move on to the next because
Right.
time is so important to them.
Yeah. That's like Ty Lopez.
Okay.
He has this, I read a book a day.
Yeah.
But then when he actually broke down what reading a book a day was, he literally just walks up to his library, grabs a book off the shelf, reads a few pages, and that's him reading a book a day. Marketing, right?
I've seen there's some services where they give the summaries of books where you can read for 10 minutes, like the summary of that book, the key points. And part of me does feel that you could get the knowledge from a 400-page book fairly quickly. You can get the points. The biggest thing with because we like to read a lot of self-development, self-improvement books about business, are you implementing this? Because there's a thing about, it's like YouTube videos. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. So there's a lot of times with books where you read it and then it's, okay, let's go to the next one. Let's get more knowledge. Let's get more information. But it might even be better to read less books, but spend more time after reading it, implementing it. Like if we read The Power of Now and we just move on to the next one and not practice the theories in it, you're kind of only hurting yourself to a degree, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we just need to be more intentional over what we put into our minds. Like, because we could actually be reading something or learning something that we might think on the surface is really the right answer, but it could actually just be outdated. It could have great intentions, but maybe the results miss the mark. So you also have to be kind of weary over what you're putting into your mind, and not just take it at face value and be like, this is a fact. Like, does this actually make sense to you? Do you see how it could apply and be applied and be successful in practicality? Like, these are the things you got to ask yourself right now, because the amount of information at our disposal is, wow, probably 100,000 times more than just 10 years ago. Yeah. Just the way the internet is. So be conscious and cautious over what you agree with. Yeah. And Jim Rohn says it the best, I think. And he says, stand guard at the gate of your mind every single day. Don't just take things in and agree with people just because it's words and it makes sense on the surface, because you might not know the inner mechanics of why it actually is incorrect.
It's incredible how if someone says something with just dead set confidence and looks you dead in the eye, or writes on a page with such conviction that this concept or set of facts are true, how many people will believe that? And I also am a big encourager of reading things that will stretch you. Don't just read things with a confirmation bias, right? I like to read some books. There's a guy named Osho. I don't know if that rings a bell at all.
No.
There's a documentary about him on Netflix. It's called Wild Wild Country. And it's about this kind of Indian guru who came over to the States and started basically a cult. Now, there's some debate about whether if that was his fault or his followers. I don't want to get into that. But anyways, he's written tons of books, and I read some of them, and I think they're very powerful. But there's some things in there that are just insane. So it's being able to go through that and pick out the gems from that. You don't have to accept everything, but what works for you.
Right. Like, not everything that one person says will be right and wrong, or something you agree with, something you disagree with. Like, so you brought up the Way of the Superior Man, I think it's called. Yep. And there was another book that we talked about before.
Rational Male? Or no. Hard Times Create Strong Men.
Hard Times Create Strong Men by Stephen Arnio.
Yep.
And a lot of that book I agree with. And then a lot of that book I also disagree with. You get super polarized on political matters, super polarized on family matters, just things that, they're not really totally relevant.
Yeah.
And I understand when you write a book, it's your opinion. But this is just a good example where it's like, take it at face value, pick the things out that you want, leave the things away that you don't want. We have so much information. It's a buffet. What do you want? What do you want to use?
Yeah. And as well, it's one of those things where there's so many things in life that aren't black and white, and people have a hard time with nuance, right? Because even I just want to clarify, there are facts in this world, and this idea of let's just pick and choose could actually be dangerous as well. So again, it's this, we need to cultivate nuance in our thinking, and things aren't as black and white. Like you said, if someone could have amazing opinions on things, would be wrong on other things, and we can't just shut them down either way.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So what about online courses? Because we've talked about books, but we're missing this huge new emerging industry.
Yeah.
Courses, masterminds, coaching. There are new ways that people are learning that we've never had available to us. If you go back 30 years even, there were no online courses. That didn't exist. You had to go to a school, a college, a university in order to get this information in the form of a course. So what is your opinion on the coursing landscape at the moment?
Well, like you said, the amount of information we have now is incredible, and it's almost causing an issue where I know we've talked about this before, how it's like the graveyard of courses that are just sitting on our hard drives gathering dust,
Yeah.
and we have all this information, all these courses, and what's going to separate you from everyone else is your ability to focus on one and take action on that.
Right.
It's
Right.
better to have one course and take action on that than have 15 courses just sitting there.
Also, there's the whole aspect of, does this course create a result that actually fits with what you're good at? Like, what are your natural inclinations? Like, if I personally took like a drop shipping course, I know that I would eat dust because the components that make a successful drop shipper aren't things that come natural to me. But if I took a course on how to, do video production at a more advanced level, I know I would crush it because that's one of my natural inclinations is to produce video content. So courses should be in your realm of what you're comfortable and good at, I think.
Yeah, when I was a bit younger and more interested in self-learning, I had the same kind of struggle in the sense of I was just picking courses that I thought the outcome would be good for me, but it wouldn't match necessarily my personality. And a perfect example was I remember when I was getting out of high school, I thought, oh, software development, that's what everyone's doing. I'll be a
Right.
coder. So like trying to learn code in these courses, and I hated it
Yeah.
like so much. That was so not me to sit at a computer like that. So what I do now is I don't necessarily look at what the course material is per se. I more look at who made that course, and I envision myself, could I be that person? Do I want to be the person who made that course?
Interesting.
And then I learned it's like, okay, if I want to be in 3 years this person, I want to be at his level of success. Well, let's learn directly from him. And then I check out, does he have coaching? Does he have a course? These type of things.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of looking at it. And what kind of result is the outcome as well? If you can see yourself even doing that thing in 3 or 5 years, then it's worth the investment. But the thing that I think is so staggeringly different from books is you're never going to find a book that is being sold for $5,000.
Yeah.
You just won't. That's just not a thing that people would really ever pay unless it's some sort of collectible. It's not really going to ever happen. In courses, on the other hand, there's some courses that are free. Some courses are $10, $12, get it on Udemy, and they're actually good. Some courses are $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, offering someone a transformation, offering someone a proven result.
Yeah.
A little more strength and a little more promise. Such a higher price point. What's your opinion on that?
I personally am all for high ticket courses and coaching because I think of it this way, especially if you're ever considering selling that. You're not necessarily just selling a course of information, you're selling a result, right? So if I came to you, Vic, and I was like, hey, look, you want to be a successful marketer and you want to have a 6-figure a month business. I have a pill right here that you can take and you will have that immediate in 3 months. What would that be worth to you?
The amount of revenue or profit that I would generate in a year.
Yeah.
I would pay for that.
Right. So it's those things. So and also when you're investing in courses, like you said before, there's so many courses that are $9.99, $12 and so forth. And those are good if you're just trying to learn a basic skill for maybe your business or so forth. But when you're selling something that's very transformational, you're going a whole new career path, or you want to learn to be more present, maybe it's a mental health thing. Investing that more money really puts some skin in the game for you to take action on that course.
Yeah.
When you spend $5,000 on a 3-month course in coaching, you're going to be a lot more encouraged to every week follow exactly what this person says, do the action steps, versus if you spent $20, it's going to, again, go to that graveyard of courses.
Yeah, I agree. I have taken some $20 courses. I've taken a $12,000 course, and definitely that's the truth.
Yep.
I was not really compelled to implement or really take serious the content at the lower level, the lower ticket. But right when I got into the higher ticket space, I found that the avenues towards results were crystal clear. The content was really, really, really well thought out. The resources were through the roof. I would never have a personal resource based on a low ticket program. If that was offered, I have no idea how they would sustain it. There's a lot of elements there that make a lot of sense at the high ticket. Where I kind of see a problem is that some people are jumping into that space just on the get rich quick train, right? Like they're just like, I can make a course, I can sell it 5 of them for 10 grand, 50 grand a year. All I got to do is sell 5 of them, right? Which is the truth. But just because it's a high ticket doesn't mean that the results are going to be amazing. So definitely, like Cayden was saying before, look at the person who made the course, look at their actual results. Is that someone that you want to replicate, or you can see yourself replicating? Because that actually really matters in the situation.
Another good tip that I've found from my own personal experience is that when you're looking for a mentor or a coach, there are some very big players in that game, aka like a Tony Robbins, right? When Tony Robbins advertises doing coaching, and I'm actually a big fan of Tony Robbins. This isn't a shot at Tony Robbins, but I'll say this. When you sign up for a 5K coaching program with a someone at the level of a Tony Robbins that's so big, there's also going to be so many people in that coaching and course as well that it's extremely easy to get lost in the shuffle. Like, it's going to be advertised usually as very like, get direct access, blah, blah, ask questions. But when you have 200, 300 people on a call, you're more at some point just watching a YouTube video than actually having a mentorship relationship.
Exactly.
So if you can find someone who is successful, who is where you want to be, but they're not at this God tier level, they maybe have like 20,000 followers, like a very good niche community, reach out to that person. So maybe you can do one-on-ones, or it's a group of 5 to 10 people. That way you can have that relationship with the coach and you're not going to get lost in the shuffle.
And that's so true, because when I was in my 12K program that I told you about, the most valuable part that I got out of anything. So there was content, there was direct coaching, there was a book reference list, a bunch of really good books to read. But then there was the mastermind element that was business owners in the exact same position as me, same revenue, same niche, same goals. And I feel like I made more of an ROI just by partnering with, I think, 5 or 6 of these different people that I made friends with. Just by partnering with them, I made more ROI than the actual program itself.
Yeah.
So I think that having this big blend of different resources, because that's not going to be the answer for everybody. Maybe it was the actual one-on-one coaching, because I know you're huge on that. Maybe it was the actual one-on-one coaching that did it for you.
Yeah.
But when you join a big high-ticket program, very rarely is it just going to be like videos that you watch.
Yeah.
There's going to be like a buffet of options of different resources you can use to get to that result.
Yeah, and another encouragement to get a part of mentorship groups and coaching is that your mindset. That was a huge one for me, where if I get on a call twice a week with a group of people who are a couple steps ahead of me, because for a lot of solo entrepreneurs, you can get in this isolation where it's just you working and you're not in contact with anyone, you're just trying to grind it out. And when failure comes, it gets really discouraging. Like, is this possible? But when every week you get that refresher of your mindset because you're around people who did it and they're encouraging, like, hey, I was at that position you are, and in 6 months, here I am now. Like, it's possible. Keep going. That pays its weight. That pays right there for what you spent.
Now I just want to find a new mastermind.
Yeah.
After this conversation,
I feel like I will always be involved in some group. I think that's important. It might not be one-on-one coaching, but I always want to be in a situation where I'm surrounded, like in a mastermind situation.
Yeah. I think that I might actually just jump right into something new, because just talking about this, just reminding myself of how like powerful that was. That was sick. That was a great experience.
Yeah.
So one thing I've been thinking about this week, because the last time we talked on the podcast, the first time, I guess, we talked about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, the new Ethereum game.
Yeah.
How do you see the music industry taking on NFTs? Because that could be the answer to a lot of music artists, music producers' problems.
Yeah. So I don't want to flex here as if I know everything about NFTs. Like, I feel like any opinion I'm going to say right now is so like I've not thought about this before. And so what you're getting right now is very raw.
I'm 100% putting him on the spot.
Yeah. But I'll say this. So I know Kings of Leon just announced that their new album is going to be an NFT.
Yeah.
I'm still confused in the concept of, it's funny, I'm confused about NFT concepts. I've purchased an NFT recently. I purchased Logan Paul's Pokemon card, which I don't think actually has gone up in value. But anyways.
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, in 20 years, maybe that's going to be great. But anyways, Kings of Leon, they made an NFT album. But so basically, I'm assuming that means that there's only so many available.
Yeah.
And there's a scarcity. But there's got to be some way that they are stopping people from just ripping that and then selling it or putting on streaming.
This is what it's like. This is how I see it. Because Sway Lee is also doing the same thing.
Okay.
So the way I see it is this NFT is like a special collectible version. To give you context, when Adele put out her album 25, her next album after 21, which was the big album when Adele ruled the world, she put out an album 25. I bought the vinyl version of it and I still have it sealed because I wanted it as a collectible because I had pretty good intentions that it was going to be worth something someday. I don't know if it will be. The album didn't do as good as 21, but nonetheless, it's still, I own it. It's still sealed. Looking at it in that light, where this album is like a collector's item, and especially if they've only minted, 1,000 of them. Yeah. There's only going to be 1,000 licenses to own that version, that collectible version of this album. It's almost like they're creating like a brand new version of vinyl or like a brand new version of CDs, but they're super, super limited.
So basically it's to kind of relate this to the past. It's like a virtual CD where there is a limited quantity available that have been made.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna be able to listen to the album on maybe Spotify or so forth.
You
don't have that quote unquote hard copy that's virtual.
Exactly. You don't own. It's kind of like investing in an artist. And I've always thought in this past few years, I've always had this idea where it'd be so cool if you could just go to this like different version of the stock market where you can invest in artists and invest in like ideas and invest in more creative people that aren't publicly traded. And I think this is that.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. So Kanye West in an interview a couple years ago said the exact same thing, which shows your genius level, Vic. But anyways, he said that he's like, we need to be able to have like little Uzi Vert should be on the stock market. Like we need to be able to, you should be able to invest in Uzi.
Dude, you should.
Yeah.
If you believe in an artist, and because this is the thing. In 2010, right after I graduated high school, I was obsessed with Drake. Obsessed. This was right when Young Money was kind of coming to fruition. He was nowhere who he is today. And I was telling all my friends, Drake is the one. Do not doubt this guy.
Yeah.
And people were, no, Drake. No, he's nothing. Like he's like he was really soft back then, like singing. Yeah. People didn't see the vision. But when I heard him like rap in some of his songs, it was crazy. Just the logic, the storytelling, the clarity, everything was so perfect. I'm like, this guy's going to rule the world. A few years later, look at that. If there was an NFT of Drake, I would be, there would be so much gains. I would be eating tendies all day.
That's a super interesting concept. Think of it, if you're an up and coming artist and you went like public, and then you could have investors invest in you to afford to tour, to build studio time, to market.
But dude, that's what the NFT for the music industry, it's like crowdsourcing, but also giving out a collectible that's also kind of a stock, but it's your album. It's like, crazy.
I don't know. I totally see what you're saying, except the stock portion of it. I don't know how that necessarily.
So let me just preface, in no way, shape, or form, and am I an NFT expert? I'm just going to give you from what I understand from what my research is. So essentially, you create this item digitally, and then you issue almost like these shares. So if I took a company public, I would issue X amount of shares. Let's just say 1,000. There's 1,000 shares that are publicly available to be traded in the market. NFT does the exact same thing. So if I mint a collectible album and I issue 1,000 shares, that means 1,000 people can own into that item. And as the value of that item grows, the share value will
go up.
So that's kind of where this whole thing becomes almost like the stock market for creators.
Yeah, because back in the day, if you went to Best Buy and there was the CDs, it wasn't that, let's say the CD, if all the CDs were gone, if everyone bought the CDs, the price usually wouldn't go up. You know what I mean? And in terms of like stock pricing, they don't do it that way.
So imagine you bought the first ever Metallica CD ever made at one of their concerts, still sealed. You still had it. How much do you think that would be worth? You bought it in the 80s for $5. How much do you think that's worth today?
Probably in the tens of thousands.
At least. Yeah. So it's that same kind of concept where, yeah, if you buy a CD at a CD store, it's supply and demand. There's millions and millions of copies circulating. So that copy is only really going to be worth what the shelf life was and then what the aftermarket value is. But if there's only one copy circulating, and it's from a reputable source that has a lot of fans, there's a lot of demand around it, like that Michael Jordan basketball card that sold for I think like $800,000, something like that. It's that kind of concept.
It'll be interesting to see though how the response is long term here, because again, that Metallica CD, that is a physical, like this is in my hands, I can feel it. Right now with the NFTs, it's purely virtual. So
yes,
there'll be this concept of what am I really buying here? Like if the price starts to go up, let's say this new Kings of Leon NFT or Sway Lee NFT goes up to $100 or something. Am I really gonna want to invest in that? It's just like, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And I'm also curious about the files. So if I get this Kings of Leon album, NFT album, and it comes to me in a zip file, and I unzip the files and I put them on my computer, and then I go back into the market and I sell it to someone else, I have the files still. What do they have that is so valuable? Yeah. Like when I go and sell that Metallica CD to you, I don't just like, I can't just like, if I go and burn the CD, it's not that, right? But when it's digital, the files are really the only thing that matters. So this is kind of where I'm still confused about this.
So this could very much be a hype thing. I feel the NFT space is going to evolve, and this like V1 stuff we're seeing coming out could be just the beginning, and it'll be a lot of hype around it, but it hasn't been, the kinks haven't all been worked out yet. Right. So I'm not betting the house on NFT albums at this point. Yeah. But I'm interested to see what happens.
So I don't really say this much on this side of my business, on the Social Gravity side of my business, but I've been producing music for a decade, and I'm about to drop a new song under my alias, which I won't say because I'm a superhero and we don't do that. But I'm going to be doing an NFT album.
Okay.
I want to do that because I thought of this on my own. A lot of times recently, I'm sending videos to people about these topics and they're like, where'd you find this? Like, for example, NFT albums, just like, I just thought of it. This is something I want to implement. I feel like this is actually super innovative. Makes a lot of sense to me. May as well throw a Hail Mary.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, right? It's like, why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, pretty good conversation today, I would say, right?
Yeah, no, looking forward to more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching the Social Gravity Podcast. My name is Vic, and thank you, Cayden, again for joining.
Peace.
Have a good one. Take care.